We're just getting set up for today. We are live streaming on YouTube, and we're also live streaming into the Numi Zoom room at the same time. As you enter the room, do us a favor, type in exactly where you're logging from, and we'd see that in the chat. And we have a 60-second timer before we start. In the chat exactly where you're logging in from. We're in 72 countries, nearly 74 now around the world. And with that in mind, some people do not speak English fluently. It may be their second language. So you can follow along with closed captions. So have a quick listen to this.
Untuk mengaktifkan terjemahan bahasa Indonesia, silakan klik caption di panel laptop atau handphone Anda semua.
Para poder obtener la traducción en español, es necesario hacer clic en el menú de Zoom y elegir la opción Subtítulos en español.
大家好，如果你想看字幕，请按屏幕底下的 CC 按钮，选择中文。此功能仅适用于直播。
Bonjour, bienvenue à cet événement Numi. Vous pouvez activer les sous-titres dans votre langue en cliquant sur Sous-titres au bas de l'écran. Veuillez noter que cette option fonctionne uniquement dans la salle Zoom en direct. Merci et bonne écoute.
大家好，如果你想看字幕，請按屏幕底下嘅 CC 按鈕選擇中文。呢個功能淨係適用於直播。
Fantastic. So welcome online, ladies and gentlemen, and please help me introduce and welcome our MC for today, which is Irene Trivaludis, and she is the one who is heading up all of the explosive growth going on in Greece right now. So if you want to unmute, welcome Irene.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm very excited, and let's see where everybody's coming from. Type wherever you're coming from. We have people from all over the world. We have people from California, Indonesia, Nigeria, Tennessee, Mexico, Jamaica, Orlando, many places. It's exciting to host a call for the first time for me, and I'm very happy to be here. So I'm going to introduce you to our founder and CEO that I had the pleasure of meeting this July at the 3-year anniversary. Stephen K. Scott has spent his whole life researching for breakthrough products. He purchased the rights for those products, and he marketed them on TV. And everybody knows the Total Gym, that he sold over $4 billion of revenue. And I'm very proud to introduce him. I'm very happy, and I'm very humble. Thank you so much, and welcome, Stephen K. Scott. And I'm very happy to have you here.
And thank you, Irene. And I want to say that it was a delight to meet Irene this year. I didn't recognize her when she came up to me because she didn't look like her before pictures that I remembered. And her after is so unbelievable. Irene, say something so you become center stage. Michael, if you...
Yes.
There. Now look at how flawless her skin is. I mean, her after, she is competing with Sherry Warner for poster girl. She'll have to be our European poster girl. Unbelievable. I mean, honestly, you look about at least 10 or 15 years, maybe even more younger than your before picture. Your skin is flawless. I used to own a makeup company, and one thing that we became known as was the no makeup makeup. that when you wore our makeup, nobody could tell. It had no texture. Nobody could tell you were wearing makeup. It just looked like you had perfect skin. But the look we were always going for was Irene's look. And that is not a look that she achieved with makeup. That's a look she's achieved with her skin using our NuMe products. And so what's nice about that is it's healthier. It looks better, brighter. Irene, you're a great demonstration, living demonstration of our product. I heard more testimonials this week from people, and they're the kind that are pretty gut-wrenching. They're the kind that when you talk to people who shouldn't be alive, or their spouse shouldn't be alive, or their kids shouldn't be alive, but they're alive and well. And you hear the stories, and they continue. People say, "What keeps you going? At 76, how come you're still doing as much as you do?" And the answer is, number one, I feel good because I've been on glutathione enhancement now for, well, since 2007. Of course, when we came up with Swish in 2018 was when we really perfected our formulas, the first of our formulas, and they really made a difference in how I look and feel, and in every way. But it's the testimonies you hear from others. You kind of take your own health for granted. My vision, I started on glutathione enhancement in 2007. Prior to that, every year my contact lenses had to be strengthened because my visual acuity was going down, 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 getting weaker, weaker. So each lens had to become stronger. I have what they call monovision, which means this is my reading eye. So it's one strength, it's a 6.0. And this is my weak eye, but this is my dominant eye. In the dominant eye, they always want that to be your distance eye. So because most of the time you're looking distances. And so that's 3.25. And yet my brain, I could pass a lie detector test right now, swearing I'm looking at everybody and looking outside across the valley. We live on a mountain, and we see for miles and miles. And I mean, when I go from looking at the screen, which is my right eye, evidently, to the mountain views and vistas, there's no refocus. There's no, none of that like you'd have to do with mechanical lenses. I was in television for 35 years producing the scripts that I wrote about the products that we acquired. And, I watched cameras progress. Do you know the camera in here has more advanced lighting features than the cameras we used to have in our studios and on our shoots that were $750,000. So a lot of advancements, and yet this cannot do what the eye can do. And I just saw a testimony of, it's really cool. This guy came over to the United States from China to get his doctorate, medical doctor in ophthalmology. And one of his professors, they were studying about the human eye, and he just had to he reached a point where he said this couldn't have happened by chance. It's impossible. And he told this, he said, you have trillions of cells in your eyes, and guess what? They stack in a particular pattern, all programmed by the messaging, genetic messaging that passes through your DNA. And that these cells are offset. It's not like they all line up like that. It's like they're lining up like this. And imagine a stack of 1 trillion pancakes. Try to make a hole in that. And he said, if that little tiny hole ends up, if something is misstacked just by the most infinitesimal degree, you're born blind. You are a miracle. And you'll keep hearing me say a little something about the human body on every talk, because as I learn these things, I realize what a miracle we are. The psalmist David said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And that word in the Hebrew, fearfully, means I'm made in a way that is creates tremendous respect and reverence. And the word that's translated wonderfully is full of wonder. So you've been made in this way that is so spectacular, magnificent, that it's full of wonder and demands respect and reverence. That's how you were constructed. And he told his professor, how can all this happen? It couldn't have just happened. And he said, what do you see across the street? I sent this out on my Facebook. He says, what do you see across the street? And he said, a car. And he said, do you think what's more complex, the car or your eye? He says, oh, the eye is infinitely more complex than an automobile. He said, do you think that automobile just happened? That all the screws and washers and nuts and circuits and all of those things just happened over a period of time. They just all came together. No, that's ludicrous. That's idiocy. Well, guess what? He said, I became a believer just from looking at the eye. Do you know the most powerful, fastest computers in the world, even though they can divide a second into a billion pieces and receive a billion inputs within 1 second, it's all linear. They don't receive any at the same time. They can't do it. And I asked the builder one time, the creator of the most advanced computer in the world, he was a friend of mine, and I said at the time, this goes clear back to 1977, it was 74, and he was just bragging on this computer, and I said, well, what would it take to have a computer that could receive over 50 million inputs simultaneously? And he was from India, so, oh, that's very impossible. Impossible. You need every high-rise building in New York City to contain such a computer. You couldn't do it. I said, isn't that amazing, Chandra? Because we have one that's about this big right here. That's about the size. And it fits perfectly inside your head. I said, just from each eye, your brain receives 1.5 million inputs from this eye and another 1.5 million from this eye at the exact same time. Whoa, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And things like that just amaze me. You know, someday I just have to give a lesson on some of the amazing things about the human cell, the human body, and all the things that go on. The most complex machine ever built by mankind is the Saturn V rocket with its lunar landing and its lunar orbiter. And it took 35,000 engineers 8 years to design and develop the Saturn V rocket and its lunar launcher and lunar orbiter. 35,000 engineers, 8 years. Do you know that every cell in your body is more complex with more signaling, more things happening synchronized, more moving parts than the Saturn V? Whoa. So Michael's going to show us right now what a cell looks like. That's a cross-section of one cell. And if we magnified that a few million more times, you'd see DNA, you'd see electrons, protons, atoms. You'd really see it. And you'd see this is just one cell. And, you know, we hear about that famous word inflammation, how inflammation is the source of almost all of our problems. Can you imagine if we just dropped a little bit of gooey liquid in that cell? It would obstruct the smooth workings in that cell. It could be devastating. It could be life-ending for the cell. And if that cell dies and mutates, guess what? You end up with this little thing called cancer. And cancer kills a lot of people. In America, it's the #2 killer right now, second only to heart disease. And they say in the next 10 years, it'll flip. Cancer will be the #1 killer and heart disease will be #2. So what goes on in your body is pretty important. Well, in 2006, I met a doctor who was one of the instructors for the Mayo Clinic. Brilliant, brilliant doctor. He was triple board certified. He was a hematologist, oncologist, immunologist, had his own clinic for 11 years or for many years, but he had been developing a way to increase the upregulation of cysteine, which is an amino acid that is one of the 3 amino acids that make up the most important molecule in life, called glutathione. I never heard of it. Most doctors I talk to have never heard of glutathione, and yet it's the most important molecule in life. It's just as important as oxygen. If you took it out of our earth, there'd be no life, no trees, no plants, no fish, no birds, no people, nothing. It's that important. And unlike oxygen, which has a few functions, glutathione performs over 400 functions in the human body. And just remove one of them, like oxygen transfer. Now, most doctors and most science, even I'm amazed how few people know this, that say, they'll tell me, oh, I know all about glutathione. I had a person a week ago say that. I know all about glutathione. Our clinics have been giving IV glutathione for years. And I said, well, then you know how important it is to oxygen transfer. And he says, what? I said, oxygen transfer. He says, it doesn't have anything. It's an antioxidant. I said, yeah. I said, its antioxidant function is one of 400 functions. And that's what it's best known for, but that's not its most important function. You know, if we took that away, we'd all die anyway. But so it is important. But I said, when your body manufactures hemoglobin, now I'm going to get more specific. Somebody asked me about this the other day. Now, Dr. Nagasawa was the #1 scientist in the world. He was at University of Minnesota for 42 years. One of the top medicinal chemists in the world in a lot of areas, but he really was #1 in the world for glutathione. And so he was kind of a mentor to me, because the company that I had created had bought a couple of his patents from the University of Minnesota and from him. And he tried to simplify things to fit into my little brain. Okay. So when he was telling me, he says, only he speaks in a Japanese accent, and just the sweetest old man. He passed away a little while ago. And, but he said, there'd be no oxygen transfer without glutathione. He says, because when hemoglobin is manufactured, it has the wrong electromagnetic charge, and it needs to be reduced to a +2. And without that reduction, there'd be no oxygen transfer, there'd be no hemoglobin. And in fact, and glutathione is the only reduction agent for hemoglobin. So that's the story I've always told. Well, somebody challenged me on it recently, so I did a deep dive. I wish Dr. Nagasawa were here, and I could thank him for simplification so I can understand things. But in reality, what it is, your hemoglobin carries iron molecules. And when everything is perfect, those iron molecules have a charge of 2 or 1. Maybe it's 1. It's 1. Have to be reduced to have a charge of 2, a +2. However, whenever there's any little thing wrong, a lot of things wrong, like oxidative stress, like a whole bunch of different things that happen to our molecules, the hemoglobin molecules, it degrades to a +3. And that makes the hemoglobin useless, non-functional, can't carry oxygen. The iron in the hemoglobin has to be reduced to a +2, and that's what glutathione does. So I'm now taking the simple, making it a little more complex. It's the iron in the hemoglobin molecule that has to be reduced to the +2. Now, if we lived in a clean environment, only ate perfect food, only breathed perfect air, and only drank perfect water, and we were never confronted by anything that created oxidative stress, which is ridiculous, there wouldn't be a need for a reduction because those beautiful iron molecules in hemoglobin would already be a +2 instead of a +3. But any little thing goes wrong. I mean, think about when you drive to work at night, you wake up the next morning and there's bugs on your windshield. Now, you didn't see them at night when they were getting on the windshield, but there they are. Well, man, that's how our cells are attacked. And our cells are attacked by 10 to 20,000 free radicals every day, every cell. You've got at least 37.5 trillion cells, and every one of them is attacked by 10 to 20,000 free radicals a day. So Michael's going to show us what 10 to 20,000 looks like. Here we go. Isn't this fun? Coming up. Or should I move on? Here it comes. I knew Michael would get it. That's 20,000 people in the Chicago Bulls arena to watch the Bulls play. That's what it looked like when Michael Jordan was playing. And imagine you're the only person on the court, and the announcer says, we're going to give $1 million to each one of you who's able to land one blow to the body or head of that guy down on the floor. And the crowd would empty so quick. There'd be a few compassionate souls that say, I don't care how much you pay me, I'm not going to hit him. But most of the people would say, hey, you know, I'll hit him lightly and get my $1 million. Well, that's how many free radicals attack each cell in your body, your brain cells, your heart cells, your eye cells, your ear cells, on and on and on and on and on. Okay, back to me. Now that's like 100,000. That's what they encounter in 5 days. So it is, you're under constant attack. And the only thing that can counterattack and mitigate all those free radicals are antioxidants. Now, a free radical is a scavenger, and how it damages the cell, it steals an electron from the cell. And that creates oxidative stress in the cell. And that oxidative stress produces inflammation. Uh-oh. Inflammation is the gateway to almost every disease known to man. Creates inflammation in the cell, and it accelerates the aging of that cell. So it accelerates the aging of brain cells, eye cells, ear cells, heart cells, kidney cells, liver cells. By the way, I started to tell you, since I started enhancing glutathione in 2007, I haven't had a single change in either one of my contact lenses, and I'm tested every year. In fact, this year he actually went backwards. He wanted to make this one weaker. He gave me contacts that were weaker, and I thought I didn't like him as much. So I went back to where I had been since 2006. And, but my eyes are under constant attack. My hearing, man, you want to look at something else. Look at the human ear. Oh my gosh. And how sound waves come into the ear and how they are then go through the eardrum, and those sound waves then trigger certain parts, are converted into electrical signals to the brain, interpreted into sound. I mean, it goes on and on. It's a miracle. And if you ever want to look that up, you would look up there's a book called Gifted Hands. He was the #1 pediatric brain surgeon in the world. And he does a little thing where he tells what happens when you answer a simple question. And I'll get the link to it, and next Thursday we'll have it. But it's amazing. I was actually live with him in 2013, and he asked a big audience, about 500 people, okay, how many of you know your birthday? Raise your hand. And every hand goes up. What's your birthday? Every hand goes up. He says, now let me tell you what happened in the time it took for that to get into your brain and then travel from your brain through all the electrical activity to the right muscles for you to raise your hand. And he goes through probably 50 or 60 things. And you're just going, whoa. And then he says, and that's the simple version. And I'll think of his name. If anybody thinks of his name, Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson. And on YouTube, you just search Ben Carson, what's your birthday? And it'll come up and it'll amaze you. So anyway, you're amazing. You're amazing. Now, antioxidants, there's a whole host of free radicals, spectrum. And every antioxidant except glutathione is monofocus. So you have like vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin A, CoQ10, superoxide dismutase, catalase, glutathione, and so on. They're all antioxidants, but other than glutathione, they're all monofocus. So these free radicals have different structures, different chemical compositions, different sources. Some are sourced from hydrogen, some oxygen, some nitrogen. And all antioxidants can handle one type, but can't handle any of the others. So vitamin C can take out that one, but it leaves all these guys. Vitamin E, CoQ10, superoxide dismutase, catalase, and so on. Glutathione is called the master antioxidant because it can sequester and neutralize all types of free radicals, regardless of their source, structure, or composition. The way an antioxidant works, it donates one of its electrons to the free radical. And when that donation takes place, it sequesters, captures, neutralizes that free radical. So glutathione is the master antioxidant. Today we have free radicals that our grandparents never dreamed of. Those wonderful 5G towers that make this possible. Anytime you get within a couple miles of one, you get some microwaves in your body. And those particular microwaves will interact with the nitrogen in your body, and they create a free radical that is, oh my gosh, it's like, I would say, a nuclearized free radical. It's called peroxynitrite, not nitrate, but nitrite. It lives 1 billion times longer than most free radicals, which are oxygen-based or sourced, oxygen sourced. And guess what it does? It attacks your DNA, your mitochondrial DNA. Now, glutathione is the primary protector of the mitochondrial DNA, not just from a free radical standpoint. Most of the damage to DNA, mitochondrial DNA, comes from the chemical load in the cell. And the chemical load in the cell will break the DNA. And when it breaks it, the cell is now at risk and vulnerable to mutating and multiplying. Of course, we call that cancer. So glutathione is the sole protector of the mitochondrial DNA. It not only protects it from oxidative stress and the free radicals, but it is the detoxifier of the cell. It has this one little arm in the cysteine molecule that's sulfur, and it's real sticky. So it sticks to the chemical and gets it out. And you say, well, I don't have that many chemicals. I mean, wrong. CDC tested 2,000 individuals in the United States from various, they were all adults originally in their first test, and they tested for 143 chemicals. And every single one had every single one. Every single person had all 178. I can't remember. But I do remember the next test was testing the umbilical cords of women after delivering a baby. For this time, it was for 217 chemicals. And every umbilical cord had all 217. So yes, we do have a problem with industrial chemicals, and we're not going to clean our environment so clean that we're going to get rid of them. Sorry, there's over 83,000, last I heard, different industrial chemicals in our environment. So all that to say, we need glutathione because it has this sticky molecule, the cysteine portion of it, sulfur, that sticks to the chemical and escorts it out. Glutathione is also the primary protector of the immune system. The immune system is designed to protect you from bacterial and viral insults. But what protects the immune system? Glutathione. When you have higher levels of glutathione in the cell, your T cells, which are the assassins that target the virus or bacteria, will reproduce at a faster rate in response to the bacterial viral insult. Critical. Timing is everything. A friend of mine was in a car wreck, and here, let me turn off my phone. Was in a car accident. Paramedics were there in 3 minutes. He was later told that had they even been 2 minutes later, he would have died. Timing is everything when it comes to human injuries, disease, and so on. Well, the better your glutathione levels, the more rapidly your T cells and B cells in the immune system, the two hitmen, reproduce in response to a bacterial or viral insult. So it's critical. Now, what does all that mean? Why don't we all go out? Well, I guess I should say, our glutathione levels are declining by 8 to 15% per decade. So I'm 76. So if you did the math, I've got less than 45% of the glutathione that I had at the age of 20. So that's a 65% loss or 55% loss at best. And all of us are going down. Now, it also goes down daily and weekly. It's like a roller coaster. Down, you exercise, whoop, goes down. You're in the gym. Oh, I caught cold. How did that happen? Well, guess what? Your glutathione levels was down as you were doing your workout. Then it comes back, and that's a good thing. And it comes back better than it was before usually. But it takes a while to come back. But there's lots of things that lower your glutathione levels. If you have any chronic disease, pulmonary disease, kidney disease, blood disease, anything, intestinal disease, those disease states drain reservoirs of glutathione in the cell. It's like these guys are busy fighting a fire, so you don't have a lot of other guys to call on when other fires break out and so on. So why don't we go to the store and buy glutathione capsules? They're in any health food store. Answer: when glutathione hits the stomach, it breaks the molecule. It's too fragile. Same thing with cysteine. Breaks it. Doesn't get through. Looks good, sounds good. So what have they done? They wrap a lipid or a fat around the molecule, and that may get some through. But when you wrap something in a fat, you have two problems. Number one, the bulk increases, and particle size is everything when it comes to cellular absorption and cellular utilization. You can't get a 50 nanometer molecule in a 10 nanometer pore. Doesn't work. And the average human cell is 100 billionths of a meter, 100 nanometers, and the pore, the average pore size in the cell is 10 nanometers. Now let's put that in perspective to show you how tiny that is. One strand of your hair is 80,000 nanometers thick. So when we talk about 100 nanometers, 10 nanometers, we're talking an incredibly small size. You can't imagine it. And yet, even at a small size, things are critically important. Do you know one piece of brain matter, the size of a grain of sand, has 100,000 neurons and over 1 billion synapses, all communicating with one another? No, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, but glutathione is the single most important molecule in life other than oxygen. But you don't live for more than 5 minutes without either one. So, who wins the race? How fast you heal from an injury, dependent on glutathione. Why? If you have higher inflammation, slower healing. Simple math. If you have lower glutathione, slower T cell in B cell production in response to an ever-growing, expanding, reproducing bacteria or virus. So forget the liposomal stuff. I'm sorry. You know, if you get somebody to give it to you and their life depends on it, take it to be nice. But another way you can get it is an IV. Now, IVs are pretty expensive. You can get an injection for about $80. You can get an IV of glutathione, if it's just glutathione and one or two cofactors, about $200 to $300. Problem is the half-life of glutathione, once it gets in the cell, look, there's light everywhere. I'm trying to get out of the light just so it's not distracting now that I've mentioned. There we go. See, almost there. Once it gets out of this, I know it's still there, Michael. I can see it in your glasses. Just kidding. Anyway, once glutathione gets in the cell, the average half-life is 90 minutes. Now, there are some very active cells where the half-life is only 10 minutes. And there's some really lazy cells, and the half-life of glutathione in those cells typically would be about 4 hours. But the human body overall average is 90 minutes. Well, an IV will give you a bang for the buck for about 6 hours and a pretty weak tail for 24 to 30 hours. So you got to get at least 3 a week. Well, it's $600. That's a lot, you know, for people to play for glutathione. We had a surgeon actually doing that. He's a plastic surgeon in Miami, operating 14 hours a day, 5 days a week. And he was getting 3 glutathione IVs a week to boost his mental focus, keep it razor sharp, no pun intended, and scalpel sharp, I guess you should have said, and his physical endurance high. So 3 a week, $900 a week. He was told about our product. He thought there's no way a dose that costs less than $2 is going to equal what I see for $300 or $200. Yeah, it was $300 each. No, it was better. He couldn't believe it. His mental acuity, his mental focus was sharper. His endurance was better. And guess what? If he starts to fade, he swishes more. Wow, now his dosage for a day for 2 swishes is up, or for 2 servings is up to $4 compared to $300. Now, we did a test with the United States Air Force. And because military personnel get addicted to these terrible, high caffeinated, high sugar energy drinks, and they can't take them away because they got these horrendous duty calls that are way past 8 hours. And if you're in the security team, which is who we tested, you're wearing 80 pounds of equipment for 12 hours a day. And they get tired, so they take one of these high caffeinated drinks, then they take another one. Then they can't sleep at night, and they have sleep disorders. They have higher anxiety. All this is in the Military Times, October 2014. All of these things going on. And guess what? They got on our product, and with no prompting, it was a 4-month test. With no prompting, every subject was completely off of the energy drinks in 4 days. Feeling better, sleeping better. Now, we call it stealth energy. What does that mean? I know we're going to go a little long today, but, you know, you can drop off. None of us will be offended. We call it stealth energy. I read today about America's top fighter, which is called the F-22. It's a stealth fighter. This thing's massive. Its guns fire off 100 rounds per second. 6,000 rounds per minute. You don't know you've been hit by it. You never hear it because it's got you before, a lot faster than sound travels. And but here's what blew me away. This ginormous fighter jet with 2 massive engines appears on enemy radar the size of a bee. So it doesn't appear. In other words, they don't track bees on the radar. That's why it's stealth. But is it effective? Oh my gosh, it delivers the payload, isn't seen, doesn't get shot down. It can take out an enemy aircraft 500 miles away before the enemy aircraft even gets it on its radar. Oh, what was that? I'm gone. Anyway, it's stealth. Well, we call this energy from raising people's glutathione through our hydrostat process, we call it stealth energy. Why? Because you don't notice it. You don't get jittery. You don't get a spike and a crash. It's just even all day. And if ever you start to peter out in the day, you swish and you're right back. And now we've taken that same hydrostat nanotechnology and applied it to what we call neuro, which is for the brain. Now, you don't do that to replace NutraSwish. They work side by side. They both have glutathione. NutraSwish has a lot more glutathione, but the brain has some additional factors. And oh my goodness, how well does it work? We're having a hard time keeping it in stock. It is racing off the shelf, and it's unbelievable. So if I ever start to feel like this during a boring meeting, which my personality type hates meetings, I believe in what Zig Ziglar said. They've never made a monument to a committee. You know, even in Australia, you see monuments to days like Anzac Day, but you don't see monuments to committees. So I always get bored with meetings. And if it's after lunch, I can start to do. And as soon as I do that, I rush to my office, which is right across from our conference room, take some neuro, swish it for maybe a minute and a half. In 3 minutes, I am the sharpest tack in the room. I hear every fact. I don't forget it. I don't forget what people say for the good and for the bad. And I love it. I'm 100% aware. Nobody's going to say, Steve, did you hear what I said today? Yeah, you said, and I'll repeat it sometimes verbatim. So neuro works, and that's our newest product. We have a product called HERS that's focused on women's needs. Of course, we have our skincare. Now, here's what's cool. One of our athletes, well, first we'll show you what it does for athletes. So I'm going to take another 8 minutes. That's all I'm going to take, 7 at the most. Okay, Michael, let's bring up Bill Gillespie. One of our athletes was in an accident, and I'll tell you about her in a minute. But this guy was the second athlete I gave it to. He set the world record. We could go to his chart. He set the world record when he was 49 years old in 2008. He bench pressed, which is this exercise, 804 pounds. Well, that was in 2008. I called him in 2018. Let's go ahead. And look at, he's 59 years old, and his lift is down to 725. That was actually after the first time he used our product. Before that was like 705. And I said, how you doing, Bill? He said, terrible. And he said, I can only lift 700 pounds now. I said, well, that's good for a 59-year-old. Yeah, it's a world record for a 59-year-old, but I don't get to compete with the elite guys anymore because they're all pushing around 800 and or more. And he says, I can only lift heavy once a week. I used to lift heavy 4 times a week. My lean muscle mass is down. My body's racked with inflammation from a lifetime of weightlifting. And so I wake up hurting. I hurt all day. You know, I work 12, 16 hours a day in the gym working with the athletes. He was a trainer for the football team, professional football team. And he said, and then I go home hurting and I don't sleep well. I said, Bill, we're going to take care of everything. Oh, there's that stupid. Okay, let's go to what happened. He started swishing, and look at what happened. At 60, his lift went to 1,050 pounds, which is over 400 kilos if you're on the metric system. And at 62, 13 years after his prime, 1,129 pounds, 512 kilos, 40% more weight than he did in his prime at 49. Okay, back to me, please. So how does a weightlifter at the age of 62, there we go, at the age of 62, lift more weight by 40% than he lifted at the age of 49? It's called oxidative stress. You see, oxidative stress causes inflammation, accelerated aging. It is our mortal enemy. So when we can lower oxidative stress with glutathione, we see a lot of things happen that we don't even think. In fact, when I called Bill, after his first use of Swish. I said, how did you like it? He says, I think it made a difference. He says, I did lift 20 pounds more weight. I said, that's not very much. He says, yeah, but it was first use. Steve, I've been going straight down. At least it's a checkup. I said, how was your recovery? And he goes, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I woke up this morning and I wasn't sore. I wasn't stiff. This was after his first workout. He said, Steve, I didn't even notice it. Yay! Stealth strength. You recover so fast, you don't even notice it. He wasn't sore, he wasn't stiff, which was exactly what the first athlete I gave it to, an endurance athlete. First time in 10 years, he woke up where he didn't have to roller his legs, do his 20 minutes of stretching, do his 20 minutes of yoga. He didn't have any soreness. And now, if you're not in good shape, you might have a little bit, but not much. But why? Inflammation down, oxidative stress down. We just had an athlete a few weeks ago, a woman, 26-year-old, set the new world record in 2 weightlifting things at the Weightlifting World Championships for her age. She swished before every lift, and of course she's tested. They're all tested. Bill's always tested, blood and urine, to make sure they're not on a drug. Well, good news is we have no banned substance. The banned substance group, BSCG, Banned Substance Certification Group, has certified us for no banned substances. But our product is in the cells so fast and out of the bloodstream, you couldn't test it anyway. We're out of the bloodstream in 70 to 80 seconds, according to a scientist at the University of Utah. And that was independent, not our measurement or anything. So that's why we tell athletes you swish 5 minutes before an exercise or before a workout. And if you have multiple hour events, like we have one athlete who's all of his events are like 8 hours or longer. So he swishes 5 minutes before, then every hour throughout, and immediately after. And as a 49, 50-year-old, he's outperforming the 25-year-olds. Okay, now, how can all that be? Well, we have a process called Hydrostat, and we apply it to every product we make. And it helps us wrap those molecules not in lipids, not in fats, but in reorganized ultra-pure water molecules. And we know how to do it. We own the process. Nobody else has it. And we see things nobody's ever seen, ever seen. We see it in, well, I won't say anything else. But one of our athletes was in a wreck, messed up her face. She got home. They said it was going to take 5 weeks to clear. She applied it with a cotton ball in 2018. Her face was completely clear, to the shock of the plastic surgeon, in 5 days, not 5 weeks. So I thought, because I've owned 5 cosmetic companies with my partners, I thought, wow, we may have the world's best skincare product. So let's show them we'll run through skincare real fast, and then we'll be done. So this was our very first before and after 7 weeks of spraying her face 5 times a day, which is what I instructed. No other product, no other procedure. My former formulator for one of my companies became the head formulator for the company that created Botox. And when he saw this picture, he said, Steve, I hate to tell you, she's had a facelift. There's no topical product can do that. Botox can't do that. Look at how much brighter, tighter. Look at how man, Steve, it's amazing. Look at what it's done. And I said, well, it's not plastic surgery. He said, how do you know? I've known her for 15 years. She loves God. She wouldn't lie to me. And she lives on a farm, works on a farm, owns a farm. But now we'll show you a few more so you know that that's not the only one. This is my hands. I sprayed my right hand for 12 weeks, 4 times a day, and didn't spray my left hand. Look at the difference. Not hard to see. Don't need a magnifying glass. This is an 84-year-old lady. I asked her how many times she sprayed her face. She said, I lost count. She says, I have spray bottles of our skincare product all over the house. And anytime I pass one, I just spray it and it dries in a few seconds. So it's great. Look at that. Here's another woman. I met her daughter on a recent trip. I think it was in France. And her daughter, she's 84 years old also. 10 weeks to look at the difference. She went from the legs of an 84-year-old to a much younger one. Michael's trying to hurry me up. So this is 8 days. She owns a skincare salon in Miami, Florida. She couldn't wait 8 weeks. She said, look at this. Where did my pores go? Look how much smoother, brighter, tighter. Look how it opened up my eyes. Steve, this is amazing. Okay, we'll show a few more and then I'll give you the keywords to write down. This lady is 67. 6 months is the far right, okay, where it looks like she's taken 20 years off of her face. She's 60 years old. I met her 2 years ago when she turned 60, so now she'd be 61. Next. There you see side by side. This guy's 67. That was 6 weeks. Look at the difference. So here's the words you write down. Tighter, brighter, smoother, younger. Okay, say those with me right now. Tighter, brighter, smoother, younger. That's the effect everybody sees. Anybody that's known or seen Irene's before knows she's no exception. Next. Okay, next, let's go through just a couple real quick. Okay, she's real young, but look at the even skin tone. Look at the pores. I mean, just amazing for 10 days. Next. She's 83, 3 weeks. That's the first girl's mother that you saw, Sherry Warner. She's in her 60s, but was a smoker. Look at damaged skin, doesn't look damaged anymore. Next. Okay, that was just 6 days. Look at the difference. Next. Okay, this is in Nigeria. We have somebody from Nigeria on today. She's in her 80s. She's the mother of a doctor. The doctor gave her the product. Look at what it did with melon production in the upper hemisphere of her face. I mean, it's actually her whole face, but that's 4 weeks. Crazy. Next. Okay, that's damaged skin from Australia. 6 weeks. Next. This guy's 94, and we'll close with him because we'll actually show one more. But he said, you know, yes, I like my new look at 94. Who gets a new look at 94? But he says, better than the look, I feel like the guy on the right, not the guy on the left. Well, that's what we want. We want you to feel good. Then she's 87, and we'll close with this one. She's in Hungary, where I just was just a few weeks ago with Ryan. Look at that. 87 years old, 7 weeks. Okay, what do? We make everything better. Who else can do what we do? Nobody. That's our Hydrosat process using the floor. We apply for patents on all of our formulas. And guess what? None of our formulas can be made without our secret technology, which we don't patent because we want it to stay a secret. And that's Hydrostat. So that's what we have. I'll be back next Thursday. Hey, we really went up on this call. Last week, we only had 35. Now we have 74. Let's shoot for the moon. Let's get 150 on the next week. Irene, get a lot of people from Greece, and maybe you can even get in the translating room and translate, or they can use the captions. Michael, as always, thank you. Michael's been with us from the beginning. Michael and I date back like many of you. Prue and Greg, Phoebe, Jackie, a lot of us go way back. So God bless you all. Thank you for praying for my wife. She's in the 8th day of recovery from her hip replacement, and which was a week ago yesterday. And it's slow for the first few weeks. It's slow, but then I hear it's like a real nice curve that once you get past a certain point, whoop, it's like really good. So we had our second physical therapy today, and so she's back resting. So pray for Shannon, if you would, a fast recovery. I'd appreciate it. Please pray for our hurricane victims. We have over 1 million people without power over 8 days later in the United States. No water, no electricity. A friend of mine owns a number of car dealerships in North Carolina. He says, all of our people are okay. They made it okay. But we have little villages and communities that are absolutely isolated. All the roads are out. And so it was Hurricane Helena. So if you would pray for those that are suffering for that this week, I know God will honor your prayers as he always does. And we appreciate that. And of course, if any of you have prayer requests that are worse, you'd like me to share, I'll always ask for prayer in the office with my family, in the office with our corporate staff, and of course with our members. We love taking prayer requests. So with that, have a great week. Michael, back to you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Steve. And the only reason is that the explosion in Greece won't be on this call because it's 3 a.m, just so we're clear. They would love to be, but it is very early in the morning for them. They were still typing to me at about 1 a.m. their time, and things are exploding, which is exciting.
Michael, we'll do special calls for them.
Yeah, beautiful.
For Europe,
And so, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of calls, next week for all the members listening, the same calls happened. The weekly official business presentation will be happening next week, followed by members night, followed by Steve. And then we have the week where most of the diamonds will be away on the diamond retreat. Having said that, the show will still go on because Keith Chazon will continue to run events while we're gone. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And